it's a gigantic whole because, in addition to being, amazing artists and people who spent their entire life fighting for other people and fighting for progressive causes, they were also at the center of a lot of people's lives. They were very social, and there are so many people that were very, very close to them. So it just leaves a massive hole in the community. I haven't rewatched the film since then, but it changes the movie because it is also about the love between the Brooks family and the Reiner family. They were so intertwined for so long, and they're all such special people who gave so much to the world. So it's definitely bittersweet to see certain sections of this documentary. But Rob is so funny and warm and tells the stories of Mel and Carl and their love in a really beautiful way.
It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, and it didn't try to explain anything away. Yet when Judd Apatow finally spoke about Rob Reiner, something shifted across Hollywood. The words were simple, almost restrained, but the reaction was anything but. Fans paused. Fellow filmmakers went quiet. Even seasoned actors admitted it hit harder than they expected. What did Apatow say that stirred so much emotion? And why did his tribute feel less like a farewell and more like a curtain being gently pulled back on a bond few people ever saw? Judd Apatow has always spoken about comedy as if it were a living family tree, something passed down not just through scripts and punchlines, but through tone, generosity, courage, and an unspoken responsibility to make the culture a little smarter while you make it laugh. When he reflects on Rob Reiner, it is not as a distant Hollywood legend or a name frozen in film history, but as one of the people who quietly shaped the ground Apatow himself stands on. Reiner's influence, Apatow has suggested across interviews, projects, and professional choices, is woven into how modern American comedy learned to balance humor with heart, satire with empathy, and success with conscience. For Apatow, Rob Reiner represents a bridge between generations. Reiner emerged from a lineage that already carried enormous weight, the son of Carl Reiner, a foundational architect of television comedy, and a collaborator with Mel Brooks, whose work helped define what comedy could dare to say. Yet Rob Reiner did not simply inherit that legacy, he transformed it. As an actor on All in the Family, he stepped into America's living rooms at a moment when television was confronting politics, class, race, and gender head-on. His character, Meathead, became a symbol of generational conflict and moral certainty, and Reiner learned early that comedy could provoke discomfort while still drawing people together. That lesson would echo decades later in the work of Judd Apatow. Apatow came of age in a different era, but the blueprint was there. When he began building his own body of work, films and shows that mixed raunchy humor with vulnerability, insecurity, and emotional growth, he was operating in a tradition Reiner helped normalize. Reiner's films proved that audiences would follow characters who were flawed, stubborn, and emotionally exposed as long as the storytelling was honest. Movies like This Is Spinal Tap, When Harry Sally Met, Stand By Me, and Misery were wildly different in tone, yet unified by a belief that character mattered more than spectacle. Apatow has often championed that same belief, arguing that comedy lands hardest when it grows out of recognizable human behavior rather than cleverness alone. One of the clearest intersections between Apatow and Reiner's worlds came through Apatow's work on the HBO documentary Mel Brooks, the 99-Year-Old Man, which prominently features Rob Reiner in recorded interviews. In those scenes, Reiner speaks not as a celebrity, but as a son and a witness to comedy history. Apatow's decision to foreground Reiner's voice in telling the story of Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks is itself a statement of respect. It shows Apatow acting not just as a filmmaker, but as a custodian of comedy's memory, preserving the insights of those who helped build the art form. What makes Apatow's appreciation of Reiner especially meaningful is that it is not limited to craft. Reiner has long been one of Hollywood's most outspoken political voices, and whether one agrees with his views or not, his willingness to speak publicly reflects a belief that artists should not retreat into silence once they achieve success. Apatow has echoed this stance in his own career, using interviews and social media to argue that comedy and citizenship are not separate realms. The idea that humor can be both entertaining and morally engaged is another through line connecting the two men. Apatow has never suggested that Reiner told him what to think, but the example Reiner set of caring loudly, sometimes controversially, helped define what it looks like to be a public artist in modern America. In industry conversations, Apatow has often spoken about mentorship not as formal instruction, but as absorption. You watch how people behave, you notice who treats crews well, who listens, who takes responsibility when things go wrong. Reiner's reputation in Hollywood has long included a sense of decency and seriousness about the work, even when the work was absurd or playful. That balance, taking comedy seriously without taking oneself too seriously, is something Apatow has tried to instill in the actors and writers he works with. In that sense, Reiner's influence travels indirectly, passed along through attitudes and standards rather than explicit lessons. Apatow's films frequently center on men struggling to grow up, confront responsibility, and learn how to love without hiding behind jokes. That thematic concern can be traced back, at least in spirit, to Reiner's storytelling instincts. Reiner understood that comedy could be a Trojan horse for emotional truth. In When Harry Met Sally, the wit and charm draw viewers in, but what lingers is the honesty about loneliness, timing, and fear of vulnerability. Apatow's work often follows a similar rhythm: laughter first, recognition second, reflection last. It is not imitation, but inheritance. There is also something quietly significant about how Apatow talks about legacy. He tends to resist the idea of untouchable icons, preferring instead to frame figures like Reiner as working artists who made choices, took risks, and sometimes failed. That framing does not diminish Reiner's stature, it humanizes it. By treating Reiner as part of an ongoing conversation rather than a finished monument, Apatow keeps his influence alive. Young filmmakers encountering Reiner through Apatow's projects or references are invited to learn, not just admire. In moments when Hollywood reflects on loss and continuity, Apatow's role becomes clearer. He belongs to a generation that is now responsible for carrying forward the values it once absorbed. Remembering Rob Reiner for Apatow is not only about honoring the past, it is about reaffirming what kind of industry and what kind of comedy should exist going forward. It means defending the idea that humor can be generous rather than cruel, political without being empty, and popular without being shallow. Reiner's influence on Apatow is therefore less about direct collaboration and more about orientation. It shows up in how Apatow structures stories, how he talks about responsibility, and how he frames comedy as something that can age, evolve, and still matter. In preserving Reiner's voice through documentary work, referencing his films, and reflecting his values in his own career, Apatow participates in an unbroken line of creative transmission. In the end, Judd Apatow remembering Rob Reiner is not a single quote or tribute, but a pattern. It is visible in the projects he chooses, the people he uplifts, and the seriousness with which he treats laughter. Reiner helped prove that comedy could grow up without losing its bite, and Apatow has spent much of his career extending that proof into a new century. Through that continuity, Reiner's influence does not fade. It keeps talking, laughing, and shaping stories